My name is Lena Mathers. I'm 42, a medical billing coordinator living in Lexington, Kentucky. And until 3 months ago, I thought I was married to a decent man. Not a great man, not a romantic or particularly attentive one, but decent, dependable. I was wrong. Before I tell you what I did, I need to tell you what was done to me. It started slow, almost invisible like frost creeping along the inside of a window. First, it was my husband Glenn forgetting I don't eat red meat, serving brisket to the dinner guests and laughing when I just pushed it around. Then came the weekends he was on call for the IT department, even though he was only mid-level and hadn't been called in once during our 27 years of marriage. Then finally came the silence. The kind that fills the room not because no one is talking, but because the person next to you has already left in every way that matters. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not yet. I paid attention. If you've ever sat in the corner of your own life watching everyone move around like you're not even there, then you already understand. But if not, imagine this. You walk into your own living room, your slippers still damp from stepping in the dew outside while checking the mailbox, and you freeze. Because he's there, on your couch, and so is she. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who swore they'd love you forever, you're not alone. Tap the like button, subscribe, and stick around because this story isn't about falling apart. It's about rising up. Let me take you back. 3 months ago, I walked in from work early. I wasn't supposed to be home until 6, but my carpool buddy, Teresa, had a dentist appointment, so I got a lift home. Glenn didn't know. He thought I was an hour away. The minute I turned the handle, I knew. The house was too quiet, but not empty. It had that charged kind of silence. I stepped soft. My shoes didn't even squeak against the hard wood. And there they were. Glenn, in his favorite flannel pajama pants, that same ratty green pair I bought him for Christmas back in 2009. And beside him, a woman I'd never seen before, maybe 30, blonde hair coiled on top like a cocktail waitress from a country club party, laughing, leaning into him, her hand on his thigh like she belonged there. And Glenn, he wasn't pushing her away. He was performing for her, doing that stupid fake deep voice he always used when he wanted to sound important. His hand rested lightly on hers like muscle memory. I should have yelled. I should have thrown something. Instead, I smiled. A cold smile, the kind that cracks your own lips because it doesn't reach your eyes. The kind that's not yours anymore. It belongs to whatever part of your soul survives long enough to burn everything else down. And in that moment, my brain said one thing. Keep going. Keep laughing, keep drowning in your betrayal, keep treating me like I'm too stupid to notice, because someone will cry, and it won't be me. But back then, I wasn't strong yet. I was still the woman who used to apologize when Glenn left the dishes in the sink. Still the woman who believed, deep down, that if a man cheated, it was because I'd done something wrong, gained weight, gotten boring, aged out of desire. I didn't say a word, just walked into the kitchen, grabbed my mail off the counter, and walked right back out. They didn't even notice me. Or maybe they did and just didn't care. That night, Glenn came to bed late. I lay facing the wall, pretending to sleep. He smelled like expensive perfume and mint gum, not his usual aftershave. He didn't touch me. I waited. I waited weeks. Let him think I didn't know. Let him hang himself with the rope I handed him in the form of indifference. And I started collecting. I started with his phone. Glenn was careless, like all men who think their wives are dumb and loyal and too tired to dig. He didn't even bother changing the passcode. It was still my birthday. I didn't find just one woman. I found 4. One was local, a girl from a vape shop downtown. One was from his old job in Ohio. One was married herself. And the fourth, she was the woman on my couch. Tiffany L. on Facebook, a former pharmacy tech turned lifestyle coach, all contour and filters and hollow captions about authenticity. She posted a photo the day after I saw her in my house. It was Glenn's arm. I'd know that mole anywhere. Cropped out of frame, but the watch I bought him on our 25th anniversary was there, clear as day. The caption? Finally found a man who sees me. I nearly bit through my tongue, but I didn't cry. I screenshotted everything. Then I made appointments. First a lawyer, then a private investigator. Then quietly I called my daughter Candace, who was 28 and living in Nashville. I told her I was thinking of changing things up. Didn't give her details, not yet. She'd always been closer to her dad anyway. I started packing what mattered. My mother's Bible, my wedding ring, which I planned to sell, the old quilt I stitched by hand in 1994 when Glenn lost his job and we had to cancel Christmas. I also opened a new bank account under my maiden name. Every smile Glenn threw at me for the next few weeks felt like a punch I'd already dodged. He thought he was clever. He thought I was blind. What he didn't know was the woman he married was gone. The Lena who whispered apologies and begged for closeness had died quietly somewhere between "sorry I forgot" and "it's not what you think." What was left of me was something colder, sharper, and I wasn't going to ask for my dignity back. I was going to take it. The night before everything unraveled, Glenn came home late again, said there was a server meltdown at work, and kissed the air near my forehead like he was my aunt. I watched him change into gym shorts and collapse on the recliner like nothing was broken. He never noticed the small safe missing from the hall closet, never noticed the line item in our joint account for a $200 deposit to a co-working space downtown, never noticed that I stopped doing his laundry. He was too busy texting, smiling down at his lap like his real life was somewhere inside that glowing screen. He didn't know I'd already rewritten our will. He didn't know I was about to burn it all down, quietly, legally, completely. Because when a man leaves you without ever walking out the door, you don't beg, you build. And the day I finally watched him sink, I didn't even blink.
3 weeks. That's how long it took to lay the groundwork. You'd be amazed how fast you can become invisible in your own home when someone thinks they've already gotten away with it. Glenn floated around like a man on borrowed time, laughing louder, leaving more cologne trails, acting like he'd suddenly discovered some hidden well of confidence. He wasn't in love. He was inflated. Full of himself, full of Tiffany, full of delusion. He thought he'd finally pulled one over on me. What he didn't know was, every time he smiled at his phone or stayed late at the office, he was tightening the noose I handed him. I just had to wait, watch, and make sure I didn't flinch when the pieces moved. There's a quiet kind of rage that sits under your skin when you've been betrayed. It doesn't scream. It doesn't throw plates. It just waits, like a storm that knows exactly when to hit. By week 4, I had what I needed. My lawyer, Helen Ramsey, was sharp, 60-something, and spoke in short, surgical sentences. She read through the phone logs, the screenshots, the bank statements I quietly collected, and nodded once. "Get him to lie on record," she said, not even blinking. "Catch him saying he isn't seeing anyone, text or audio. Then we go in for the kill." Kill. Not divorce, not negotiation. Kill. That word settled into my ribs like a second heartbeat. So, I set the trap. One Sunday morning, while Glenn was making his weak Folgers coffee and scrolling through sports scores like he cared more about the Bengals than his own family, I sat at the counter with my cup of tea and asked, sweet as pie, Do you still love me? He paused, just for a second, then looked up like I'd asked if he wanted eggs. Of course I do, hun. Where's that coming from? I smiled, staring straight at him. I don't know, just you've been distant lately, working late, and I found that earring under the couch last week. That got him. He chuckled, and shook his head. You're being paranoid again, Lena. No one's cheating on you. Maybe that earring was Candace's from when she visited. Candace hadn't set foot in the house in 6 months. I held his gaze. You sure? He nodded too fast. I swear on my mother's grave, there's no one else. Just work stress. You know how it is. I leaned in, touched his hand. I believe you. What I didn't tell him was that my phone, hidden behind the sugar jar, had been recording the whole thing. From there, the real unraveling began. I met with the private investigator again, Mike Jennings, ex-cop, smelled like leather and coffee grounds. He handed me a manila envelope with photos that made my stomach turn. Glenn and Tiffany outside a wine bar in Louisville, Glenn and Tiffany kissing in his car, Glenn carrying her tiny pink suitcase into a hotel not even 2 miles from our house. They're not subtle, Mike said, flipping the pictures like a bored blackjack dealer. You want video? No, I said, throat dry. This is enough. Because it was. More than enough. Around that time, Candace started asking questions. She called one night while I was folding towels. Hey, Mom, you've been, off lately. Is everything okay with you and Dad? She didn't sound accusatory, just cautious, like she knew I might lie and didn't want to corner me. I hesitated, then asked, Can I come visit this weekend? Just you and me? There was a pause. Of course. You want to talk? Yes, I said softly, eyes burning. I need to tell you the truth about your father. That weekend in Nashville broke something open. Candace cried, then screamed, then sat there shaking her head like she couldn't believe it. I showed her the pictures, the call logs, the recorded lie. Jesus, Mom. I know. I'm done pretending. She looked up at me, her jaw clenched. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath. Leave, but not quietly. Step 1. Pull my name from every joint account. Step 2. Freeze our home equity line. He'd tried to open a second card in both our names. Caught just in time. Step 3. Serve him papers. At work. Right before the company's quarterly team lunch. And not just for divorce. For adultery, fraud, and theft. Glenn had drained over $6,000 from our shared savings and wired it to a PayPal account under a fake LLC name. The investigator traced it to Tiffany's business fund. Helen called it financial infidelity. I called it robbery. The day the papers were served, I got a text from Glenn. Glenn, WTF is this? At my job? You're humiliating me. Me. You'll survive, unlike my dignity. He didn't reply, but Tiffany did. A message popped up on my Facebook. Her profile picture was one of those soft filtered beach selfies, lips puckered, collarbone showing like it was a resume. Tiffany. You didn't have to go nuclear, lady. You knew he was unhappy. Maybe look in the mirror before you throw stones. I stared at the message for a full minute before typing back. Me. I hope he lies to you the same way, so you'll understand the kind of man you stole. Blocked her. never looked back. But Glenn wasn't done. 2 nights later, he showed up at the house unannounced. I was in the kitchen, eating leftover chicken salad in silence, when I heard his key in the lock. He wasn't supposed to have one anymore. "Lena?" he called out, stepping in like it was still his house. I stood still, spoon in hand, calm. "You need to leave," I said, without turning around. He walked into the kitchen like a stranger. "Are you really gonna burn it all down over some fling?" I turned to face him. Finally. This wasn't a fling. It was 4 women. It was lying. It was stealing. His face twisted. "You gave me everything for years. And yeah, I screwed up. But this is overkill." I stepped closer. "You gave me scraps, and I cleaned them off the floor like it was love." We stared at each other. He blinked first. "You're gonna regret this," he muttered, turning to go. "No," I said quietly. "You will." The next morning, Glenn tried to access the joint retirement account. Too late. He called Candace, tried to turn her against me. Too late. He went to Tiffany's and found out she'd moved on already. Apparently, she didn't want a middle-aged man with frozen assets and a pending court date. Too late. But the moment that told me it was really over came 1 week later. I was standing in the living room, same place I'd stood when I first saw them on that couch, same wood floors, same beige curtains. Only this time, I was alone. Except for the envelope in my hand. A letter from Glenn's office. Inside was a single-page HR notice. Termination of employment. Apparently, someone had reported ethical violations and submitted photo evidence of behavior damaging to company reputation. Anonymous tip. I smiled. Cold, quiet, real. But as I turned to walk back into the kitchen, something stopped me. A flicker of motion outside. I stepped to the window and saw him, Glenn, sitting in his car across the street, just watching the house. No engine running, no phone in hand, just sitting, staring. And that's when I realized he wasn't just ruined, he was unraveling.
He sat out there for 3 nights straight. Same beat-up black sedan parked across the street like it belonged there. Engine off, lights out, windows fogging up from his breath. I didn't call the cops. Not yet. Because I wanted him to sit there. I wanted him to feel what it was like to be shut out of a home that used to be his. That 3rd night, I left the porch light on, just so he could see me. I stood in the doorway, cup of tea in hand, wearing the same pale blue robe he once told me made me look tired. I smiled. Not cold this time, not bitter. Just finished. The divorce proceedings moved fast. When you've got evidence like I did, timestamps, witnesses, financial records, video surveillance, it becomes more of a formality than a battle. He tried to push back, of course, tried to play the victim, claimed I was sabotaging his life. His lawyer argued I was emotionally vengeful. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat in that courtroom, spine straight, hands folded in my lap, while Helen laid it all out like a carefully packed suitcase. Exhibit A, multiple extramarital affairs. Exhibit B, misappropriation of joint funds. Exhibit C, emotional abandonment. The judge barely looked up. By the end of it, Glenn lost the house, his half of my retirement pension, and any spousal support claim he thought he'd get. The judge ruled in my favor on every point, and when Glenn muttered, "This is insane," under his breath, Helen didn't even blink. She just said, "No, Mr. Mathers, this is justice." But the most satisfying moment didn't come in court. It came 2 weeks later, in a Cracker Barrel parking lot. I'd stopped in to grab dinner with Candace. She was down visiting for the weekend. We were walking out, takeout bags in hand, when I saw him, Glenn, standing by an old minivan, wearing a rumpled polo and sagging jeans, talking to some man about IT consulting work. His voice was low, deferential. He looked tired, smaller, like someone had taken the air out of him and left the husk. He turned, saw me. For a second, I thought he'd look away, pretend he didn't know me. But he didn't. He just stood there, staring. Like maybe if he looked hard enough, he could find the woman he used to manipulate. I held his gaze. Then I turned to Candace, smiled, and said, "Let's go home." We drove off, left him standing there in the fading light. That night, I slept for 9 straight hours. No dreams, no clenching jaw, no waking up with my heart racing. It was the first peaceful sleep I had in years. There's something strange that happens when your life unravels and you survive it. You don't bounce back. You rebuild. Slowly, intentionally. You stop apologizing for taking up space. I started doing things just for me. I painted the guest room sage green. Glenn always said it made the house feel cold. I bought a better mattress. I signed up for a pottery class at the community center and made a bowl so lopsided it looked like a mistake, but I kept it. I went back to using my maiden name, Elena Ward, and for the first time in a long time, I liked who I saw in the mirror. A few months later, Tiffany messaged me again from a burner Instagram account. Probably thought I wouldn't notice it was her. Same baby pink nails, same filtered face. He lied to me too, just thought you should know. I didn't reply. Because I didn't care. By then, I'd already started working with a local nonprofit, helping women rebuild their financial independence after divorce. I told my story, quietly, without fanfare, not for pity, but because sometimes another woman needs to hear, "You're not crazy. You're not weak, and it's not too late." I won't pretend revenge fixes everything. It doesn't bring back time. It doesn't erase the nights I spent wondering what was wrong with me. It doesn't undo the way I disappeared inside my own marriage for years before Glenn ever touched another woman. But it gave me something back. My voice, myself. And in the end, that mattered more than burning it all down. Because revenge isn't about hurting them. It's about choosing yourself after they stopped choosing you. I still see Glenn sometimes, usually from a distance, walking alone in the grocery store, always looking over his shoulder like he's waiting for someone to come up behind him. But no one does. He's just alone. And me? I'm not. I've got a circle of friends now. We do coffee on Saturdays and take turns ranting about everything from exes to property taxes. I've reconnected with my sister in Asheville. I even adopted a scruffy old rescue dog named Walter who snores louder than a chainsaw. I'm not rich. I'm not perfect. But I'm free. So here I am, 42 years old, divorced, scarred, and stronger than I ever imagined I could be. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be happier without Glenn, I would have laughed in their face. But now, I laugh for real. A woman who stopped waiting to be loved and started loving herself instead. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't loud. It's reclaiming your life in quiet, permanent ways. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or left behind but found your way back to yourself anyway, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if this one hit home, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder. The end of one chapter can be the beginning of your best one yet.